This is Toon Talk Weekly, episode 275. This week, Brad and I dig back into the vault. We go back to 1988. We check out Hanna-Barbera's A Pup Named Scooby-Doo.
You're right, Freddy. I don't believe it. I didn't think anything could be this bad.
Like maybe we ought to forget this vacation. Oh, come on. Let's check the place out. Go in there? Like not on your life. No way. No way.
Fire on!
The day just keeps getting better. Boy.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Man, where is that kid?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Toon Talk Weekly. This is the weekly cartoon podcast where we talk about just that, cartoons. I'm Jake Williams, brought along my good friend Brad Shabalewski once again. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, dude. Second episode where I'm just trying to hold it together. My sickness is probably coming through. Yeah. Living on your own is super hard. I don't know how to do this anymore. So instead, I'm watching cartoons, recording podcasts with my time. That's what I'm doing.
There you go.
How you been, man?
That's how it should be. Yeah, doing great. Haven't watched any more Hilda because we just recorded that episode back to back. So,
Wait a second. You mean to tell me you didn't sneak one in?
I did. I didn't mention this on our last episode. South Park is back.
Oh, I meant to ask you if I saw headlines and stuff, but I haven't watched the episode yet.
Yeah, they are running their cancel South Park hashtag is kind of their thing they're doing right now, which is kind of funny.
Wait, cancel South Park is their advertising for the show?
Yeah, for this season, cancel South Park.
Interesting. I wonder if they're... yeah.
I believe it plays into the idea, there is... South Park, when it came out for the first many years, was very shocking, right?
Yeah.
It was there to kind of oh my God, I can't believe they did that or said that or are showing that, correct?
Yeah.
And now we are in a time where nothing shocks anyone. So that's kind of cancel South Park because it's not good anymore kind of thing, or it's not doing what it's supposed to.
Interesting. Well, when everything's shocking, nothing's shocking, right? In a sort of way. So we're accustomed to this. Wasn't the first episode that came back about school gun violence, basically? They tackled that issue, which is obviously a huge issue in the U.S. right now.
Right, but when there's one every week, people don't care as much. Not
right.
That they I don't, that's not the right way to say it, but they kind of make the point when they happen all the time, again, nothing gets done. So it shows it doesn't matter to some people.
Right. So it's interesting. Yeah. I guess I see that hashtag as two things. One is it's an interesting way for them to potentially push the envelope to say we're just going to tackle these issues straight on and actually get to the things that are shocking and show you honestly how you're acting. But I could also see it being the way you're seeing it is maybe they're just trying to stop making the show because they're not as culturally, I guess, relevant. There was a good chunk in the middle there where between it being a potty mouth 8-year-old kids show or whatever, mm-hmm. and then they started being more socially aware of the weak episodes, and they started getting into that production pipeline where it was a thing you would talk about. Hey, did you see what South Park said? And now I feel I don't hear that anymore.
Right.
Maybe they do realize they're long in the tooth, or they're what are we even doing if we're not getting, if nobody's talking about the issues that we're trying to bring up. But hats off to him, because a lot of cartoons aren't talking about modern issues, period. So.
But so it's back. It would be when this episode of Toon Talk Weekly is up. There should probably be 2 to 3 new episodes of South Park out. So halfway through their season already.
Yeah, it seemed like they're shorter seasons now too. They do them in like little sprints, it seems like. But this week, we're going a little bit more tame than South Park. This is actually a Brad recommendation. I don't remember why you brought this up, but we're watching 1988's A Pup Named Scooby-Doo.
Well, I brought this up because we were going to do a month-long kid version. So we did, a few weeks ago, we did Flintstone Kids. We had done Muppet Babies. There are a few others we could do, but there wasn't enough to, make it interesting for a month, maybe.
I think there's technically enough if we dug hard enough. It's that we probably didn't want to do that. It was like a funny idea, and then maybe that was too much. Too much kids' versions of shows. And you know what? Truthfully, why do you think it is that why do they do this? Why do they bother making a kids' version of the show?
Well, has it been done in a long time? I think it was a mid-'80s thing, which it made sense, right? It made sense for the Flintstones, because Flintstones was supposed to be an adult show. It was a Simpsons at the time. So, hey, let's do a Flintstone Kids, because we need to make this more of a kid cartoon. We need it to be a cartoon, not a basically a sitcom or a family comedy.
Right. Well, yeah, would you consider like Teen Titans Go ish? Even though it's already kind of a kid's show.
Yeah.
But that might be like the most recent thing I can think of, the most successful recent thing I can think of.
That's true. That's a good version of that. Yeah. Or there's a Naruto, basically like a chibi version of Naruto that's out there. That's basically Naruto as kids, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about Naruto for us to talk, correctly about Naruto for us to ever do that show. So maybe it's off limits, but I've watched it and it's pretty fun.
Yeah. I guess you're right. If you look at something like Flintstones Kids or Muppet Babies, right? Like those shows, the original shows were more older, the audience was. And so you do these smaller like plots where you can keep them in the franchise and like liking the same characters, but you explore them as like kids. It's just kind of interesting. And that's kind of how Pup Named Scooby-Doo came about. Produced by Hanna-Barbera, of course. This is actually the 8th incarnation of the Scooby-Doo franchise. So by 1988, this was already the 8th one.
Yeah, there's lots of Scooby-Doo stuff out there.
Yeah. This was developed by Tom Ruegger and premiered September 10th, 1988. This show is literally almost as old as I am. It's just kind of crazy. 4 seasons, 27 episodes. And I thought that number was sort of strange. When you hear 4 seasons, you think like 40-something episodes. This is like less than 8 episodes a season. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I feel like there was more, but I remember watching the show a lot because I like this version of Scooby-Doo the most.
Oh, really?
I like this one. I just like this one. It's fun. It's a little less. It takes itself even less serious than the other ones do, and there's no Scrappy-Doo or anything like that. So it's kind of just like it's Scooby-Doo at its core, right? Like we're kind of dumb kids.
That and like. When you say at its core, it's truly what it is. It's like, we're still going to do the same mystery plots where it's like, we go somewhere, someone's got a problem, we try to help them solve their problem, and then we solve that problem. That's, the formula is very much the same, but this one, them being of like junior high age, you have this like, you're already kids doing it, so they kind of went off the deep end, and basically, it's a much more comedic take on the Scooby-Doo formula, I think. At least that's how
There's no mystery machine. Though.
They can't drive. Why would there be a mystery machine? I actually forgot.
That's the only thing.
Oh, go ahead.
What was that?
I said I actually forgot how they even arrived at where they went to in the episode I watched this week. And I was like, wait a second, they can't drive. So.
My episode that I watched, they just were kind of there. They were visiting a family friend, or a family cousin or something. So they just kind of, I think they just put in the situations like, hey, we're here today. Like, there's no questions of how they got there. It's just always like, okay,
Yeah.
let's do this.
Even though the other formula was like the regular, OG Scooby-Doo is very much like, well, we're driving today. Oh, wheel broke off. Well, let's go to this house and see if we can get some help.
Right. Oh, there's a mystery to solve? Okay.
So what's interesting about this show is that Ruger, the developer of it, and much of the production staff actually left the studio after the first season. So they left Hanna-Barbera, period. And this was actually the final television series of the franchise where Don Messick, the voice actor who portrayed Scooby-Doo, actually played him before he passed away in 97. So this is the very familiar Scooby-Doo voice that you probably grew up with, lived on in Pup Named Scooby-Doo too, which is kind of cool. And the show obviously features all the characters you know and love. Scooby and Shaggy, who very much are the same exact characters they are in the original Scooby-Doo. There's not a whole lot different about them, right? Fred and Daphne aren't so much like together as they feel in the original show. Fred comes off as more of this like, I want to be the leader. I'm trying to be the leader, almost like jock-ish in a way.
But also incredibly dumb.
Yeah.
Like he knows nothing at this point.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about this incarnation of Fred is that I was reading that every single episode he thinks he's got it figured out, and he tells everyone it was red herring. And then
right, he has it out for red herring.
So, and apparently there is one episode where he doesn't accuse red herring of doing it, and it was red herring. So that's a pretty great storytelling, I think, throughout the season. You've got Daphne, who plays I don't want to say the girly girl, but of the two female characters, she I guess would fit that bill a little bit more. And then, man, Velma, especially in the episode I watched, reminded me so much of the character of May from Overwatch, which obviously is way more recent than this was. But she just has this really great character design of like her turtleneck is so high that all you can see is her eyes. It's almost like a Kenny from South Park type of deal. We were talking about South Park earlier, right? Like,
but who she's also like is in A Pup Named Scooby-Doo is Dendy from OKKO, which is like this very smart girl who has like a backpack that's a computer and who kind of talks very techie but also childish at the same time because she's a kid. So Dendy, it feels like this is Velma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like, of all, she in my episode had probably the lowest screen time, honestly, although she solved the mystery for everybody. I wonder how often that happens. It's pretty much Velma puts it together, right?
Yeah.
But her character design was probably my favorite of all of them, honestly. I think they did a really good job of like taking the known traits and colors and artifacts of these characters and making them like into tiny little cuter packages for this. So yeah, man, what was the episode you checked out? I'd love to hear a little bit about Pup Named Scooby-Doo.
So I watched an episode where they are at the beach and they meet Velma's, I want to say her cousin or her aunt, and they are there to help her because her dolphins keep going missing, like kind of getting stolen. They don't say stolen, they just say they're disappearing. I don't know if they're stolen or if they're escaping or what's happening. So they're at the beach, and of course Shaggy and Scooby, they just kind of want to ride some gnarly waves and work on their tan. But the story evolves into they meet some different people. One guy runs a skateboarding shop that he used to be like the best skateboarder in the town. He had won lots of awards, and then at some point he got mixed up with drugs. Like they say this in this episode, which is really weird.
Wow,
and
yeah.
There's lots of like, ew, drugs, that's gross. But here's a Scooby snack, by the way. So this guy gets mixed up with drugs. He's in jail for a few years, but then he comes back and he uses the rest of his money from his savings because, he still had that savings account after went to jail for drug use. And he buys like a theme park or a skate park in this town. And he tells everyone he's a bad skateboarder. He doesn't know how to skate. He never skated, tries to like have a new identity. But what happens is he is the one stealing the dolphins and putting like backpacks on them to control the dolphins where they go, so he can smuggle drugs. This was like a very heavy episode for a pup named Scooby-Doo.
And they were seriously calling them, it was just drugs?
They were drugs.
General drugs?
Yeah.
I can't believe they brought it up like a very different time.
Yeah, they were like, drugs, yeah, drugs, they can ruin your life. Like, it was just so heavy-handed for what it was, but it was really just, it was almost hysterical that was the conversation. And they were like, okay, yeah, we're tackling drugs this episode, but Scooby Snacks were, of course, involved. And yeah, that was the premise of it. It was weird.
I feel like if that episode was today, would it be like sugar? You know, like, oh, he's stealing sugar from all the bakeries and like selling. Like they'd have to like come up with some way to.
I guess, yeah. He was basically, they said like drug running with the dolphins to like smuggle them out of town.
Weird, dude. Very different time. That's all I can say.
It was amazing. It was such a fun episode. Of course, they solved it. Red Herring is in it. At some point, Red Herring is getting blamed for being the person that's stealing the dolphins. And he decides to hire Scooby and his gang to also clear his name in it. So they're like kind of working for Red Herring at the same time. But of course, Fred, at the end of the episode, he's like, maybe when they're like doing the big reveal, he's like, maybe it was Red Herring. Red Herring pops up. He's like, dude, like, I hired you to clear my name. Why would it be me? Like, oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, Fred's not the brightest in this show. That's for sure. Dang, man, this sounds way more crazy than my episode.
What was yours?
So I watched season 1, episode 8. It's called Snow Place Like Home. And once again, I don't remember how they got to this place, but essentially the gang is going on they're going to stay at essentially an Airbnb. And it's actually this cool castle kind of thing. It's got all this history. And they're going to go like snowboarding and all this kind of stuff up in the mountains and where this place is. You're like concerned about the people that they go to stay with, because it's very much like two creepy Frankenstein looking people, like Halloween scary looking people. But you learn more and more that they actually just haven't had guests in so long, because there's this rumor going around that there's this ice demon in the area. And so nobody wants to come stay there because they don't want to deal with this ice demon. You also you meet a couple of characters early on, and in typical Scooby-Doo fashion, you start to suspect them immediately. These two characters are, there's this developer guy who's like this big city slicker, who's very loud and obnoxious and is like trying to get them to sell the property to him, and he's going to build a big strip mall with 19 shoe stores and like all this crazy stuff in it. And they don't want to sell because they've lived there their whole life. They've run this bed and breakfast, even if it is like kind of spooky or whatever.
Oh, Mr. Peterson, what are you doing here? I've told you before that we are not interested in selling our property.
But wait till you see the plans I have for this place. You won't recognize it when I'm finished.
What is it?
Why, it's colossal. It's incredible. The Snowy Mountain Shopping Mall.
Did you say shopping mall?
But not just any old mall. It'll have 99 theaters, 60 restaurants, 19 shoe stores, and a 3-story beauty boutique and nail salon.
Oh, I think I may faint.
So he's an easy one to suspect. The other character you meet is like a forest manager kind of guy. And he's basically been telling them, like, you guys haven't, like, there's barely any snow here anymore. You've had to use these, like, snow machines to basically get people to come up here to the ski resort. like stuff is just kind of changing up here. I don't know why you guys just don't move, basically. And early on here, you see that Velma notices that like there's some map of, I guess there's a mine underneath this this house, and there used to be diamonds down there or something. But part of the map is missing, right? So that's a clue for later. And throughout the episode, you get your typical Scooby-Doo fare, right? You get the fun. This one had way more like dance breaks in between, and like pop rock music playing in between being chased by the ice demon and like the villain, right? So it'd be like you'd see a bunch of like the running through doors and whatever down different passageways, but then they would cut to just like the 4 characters just dancing on screen because, hey man, just dancing, running away from this monster. I don't know. It's kind of strange. And then you get the typical Scooby-Doo stuff with, we found our way down to this mine and found a secret door, and look, here's an ice demon costume. That's weird. And later on, they run into the developer guy again, and he's like, his character design's great because he goes from like calm to evil instantly. But they definitely are trying to throw you off at this guy because you learn later that it was actually the forestry guy who has the other half of the map. He was trying to mine the diamonds himself, and he also stole the ice making machines or the snow making machines and like somehow fed them into this demon suit he had so he could shoot like snow beams and freeze people, and he was trying to get them to move. Red Herring was accused here. However, he never showed up in the episode when Fred did his big speech about it was Red Herring and here's why and blah, blah, blah. A messenger showed up and he got one of those like typical like, dear Fred, stop. This is Red Herring. Stop. I'm not even there. I didn't do it. Stop. So, and Velma kind of pieced all of that stuff together, but
of course, yeah.
This case is almost over, Mr. and Mrs. Morganson. Only one person could be sneaky enough to dress up like an ice demon.
Who's that?
It's obvious to me that the ice demon has got to be none other than Red Herring.
Telegram from Mr. Freddie Jones.
Hey, that's me.
Like what's it say?
Freddy, stop. I didn't do anything, you knucklehead. Stop. So get off my case and leave me alone. Stop. Signed, Red Herring. If Red Herring isn't the monster, then who is?
Generally, man, it was like, I was like, wow, this is like tinier, cuter Scooby-Doo. Like there's lots of these almost like Looney Tunes-esque takes in the show, you know, where they hang on a character like with his eyes popping out and his tongue sticking out, like scared a lot more than I remember Scooby-Doo ever doing. So that kind of stuff was fun, but generally my opinion on the show was that it was a good time. Like it was, I really don't remember watching a ton of it, but it's kind of like a easier to digest, like more lighthearted version of Scooby-Doo. That's my review.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Like I don't want to say it's a better version, but yeah, it's easier, it's simpler. You know what's gonna happen. Like it's so formulaic, but the kid version like makes it just like it's cute and just extra friendly. Like it's not meant, the ghosts are never scary. They're never scary in regular Scooby-Doo. But then it makes more sense, like, oh, these kids are afraid of the ghosts. Like, kind of like makes a little more sense. So you kind of give it to them for that.
Yeah.
But then the fact that you're like, oh, they're like extra brave too because they're kids doing this adventure, and they like have their own business where they're like, hey, we're kids and we're mystery solvers.
Crime kids.
It's kind of like, oh, damn, nice.
So we had me in my episode. They're trying to save a bed and breakfast, and in yours, they're trying to stop drugs from coming into the skate park or whatever. Like,
yep. Well, they were saving the dolphins that were getting stolen, like Velma's aunt's dolphins. Yeah, just the drug running was the reason they were getting stolen.
That's insane, dude. There's got to be a list out there. I'm sure someone's written this of like cartoon episode plots that would not fly today. And I bet there's some way worse than that, but just the fact that there was a kid show in the 1980s that was like, yep, drugs. Better watch out for those drugs. I'm not going to tell you which ones, kids, but drugs.
But that was the 80s, right? Like every show, every cartoon was very heavy-handed in the drugs are bad.
Yeah.
No, yeah, we're not doing drugs here. No.
Meanwhile, two of your main characters are Scooby-Doo and Shaggy, who
Right.
very much in the original show were purveyors of a certain drug, potentially. Never on screen, but they're the kind of characters you probably want to hang out with. That's what they're doing.
Right. There's in the pup version, there's less smoke and drug jokes, right? There's more like, hey, we're hungry. There's like those kind of jokes, and there's Scooby snacks, but there's less of, hey, the van opened and all the smoke came out. That's not in the kid version. And I'm fine with that because they're kids. Of course, they're going to be hungry. They're just going to have a little more, they're going to have a good time with all of this. Like, they're just Scooby-Doo and the gang are just there for fun. Like, they're kids, right? So what they do is just great every moment of it.
Yeah, it's a more wholesome incarnation of Scooby-Doo. This is really what it is.
Yeah.
So, cool. Well, it was definitely fun revisiting this. I don't remember watching a ton of it as a kid, but it came right back to me, any episode that I have seen at this point. And now I got to hunt down this drugs episode because it sounds ridiculous and fun. So, that's going to do it for this week. Brad, where can people find out more about you when you're not recording Toon Talk Weekly?
So you can follow me on Twitter. It's @brad, and then my blog is digitalhitchhiker.com.
Hey, guys, go check them out over there. You can follow me on Twitter @Jacob Williams. And, of course, you want more Toon Talk Weekly, we're all over the place. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google+, and Twitter as @Toon Talk Weekly. You can find us over there. Of course, check out the video versions on YouTube. And toontalkweekly@gmail.com is the email you can get at us. Let us know if there's a better episode of Scooby-Doo. I want to know how many involve drugs at this point because it sounds hilarious. And toontalkweekly.com, the main hub for the show, where you can find any and all episodes up to this point, 275. So you can find them all over there, yeah. So that's going to do it for this week's show. But, of course, next week we'll be back, and hopefully I won't be so sick.
We have dragon shows coming up.
Yeah, I've also heard other good stuff about Dragon. Not the one we're gonna watch. There's another new Dragon show on Netflix that people are saying is really good. Mm-hmm. Dragon Princess, I don't know, Dragon something. Anyway,
yeah,
more dragons in a couple weeks for you guys. That's gonna do it for this week. We'll be back next week with another cartoon.
Take care.
To learn more about the show, visit toontalkweekly.com or follow us on Twitter @ToonTalkWeekly.